Good morning, everybody. This is Lorraine.
And Jennifer.
And this morning, there's an old saying that what you measure matters. And what it really means is that the things you measure and pay attention to are the things that get done and get better. But there's a problem with that these days, Jennifer.
Everybody knows that I'm huge into data, and the problem these days is a lot of things are changing very quickly. So, what you measure is changing quickly too, or what you're able to measure.
Absolutely. One of the first things, and I know this is one you've been complaining about for a while, but there is less and less cookie data that is coming through or that is reliable as Chrome, Safari, and Firefox all put up these obstacles to the
Yeah.
third party.
Yeah. So, they're already it's already in mode where I think 10% with Google Chrome users are having it blocked, third-party cookies, and that just means, like, a lot of platforms that kinda put a piece of code on your website are being blocked, and so that information is not there. Google has their way of handling it. All these other platforms have their way of handling it, and so you have to kinda really pay attention to that stuff.
You absolutely do. And I think compounding that, you have lots of privacy regulations. GDPR was the first, and
Yeah,
then the California privacy
yeah,
policy. But there are all of these entities and rules popping up that also prevent the sharing.
yeah. So the latest, that's just happening now is this consent mode 2, and so, there's some tracking that's gonna need to be set up that will be by individual person that I give you consent to track this and track that, and they are very much trying to appease the European, guidelines right now. But it's in America too. Just because it's not a law doesn't mean that we don't have to adjust our tracking for
Okay, so I'm in this nightmare world where
it.
all my third party cookies are meaningless or working their way around to meaningless.
Mhm.
New regulation all the time. The question is, what do I do as a
Well,
marketer? How do I figure out what's working?
I think you have to do this on 2 different levels. You have to pay attention to how each different platform is kind of handling it because each individual platform or sometimes type of marketing, your strategies are gonna change based on how they're handling it and what you can measure, not handle. And then, I know we're gonna talk about it later, but you kinda have to take this mixed modeling marketing model for trying to pull it all together, which can be messy.
Mhm.
And then the third thing I would say, which is probably the most important, is, um, it's not exact. So let that go, because 'cause you're gonna drive yourself nuts and make yourself frustrated, and it's just not exact, and that's okay.
So let's kind of break that down. Let's take a look at the first thing is different platforms. And I would say for lots of businesses, you're looking at ads on Google, which still give you reliable ish data,
Yeah.
except from your Mac users.
Yep.
You have Facebook and LinkedIn ads,
Mhm.
and I don't know where you get reliable data from that. So, what are some things you can keep in mind as you're approaching your marketing and trying to make sense of some of this?
Well, again, I think it's just like 2 sets to keep them like, honest, is looking at these individual platforms and what they are able to do. So the person that's, like, optimizing and making a campaign better, let's just say on Facebook, they really need to be paying attention to what Facebook is saying because that's gonna affect their ads, how they look at it. And then, they're reporting up to somebody else that's probably looking at it more in a grander scale
Mhm.
and a larger scale, and they have to take that in consideration and have their own set of numbers depending on your size, you can easy or it's like, "Oh, boy." A lot of resources towards this.
Well, and I think, it was easy. In the old days, you looked at your website and you looked at where your traffic was coming from.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is such a small percentage. And again, as these different providers kind of hide that, it's not as reliable. But what you can do is you can go back to the days of page specific marketing.
yeah,
And then, am I seeing traffic on that page? Am I getting conversions? Because at the end of the day,
yeah. Um,
views have never been enough.
no, no.
Traffic has never been enough.
I do strongly believe that you need to look at overall conversions and you need to, it's not the last beer that you drank that got you drunk. It's all the beers. And I feel the same way about marketing. And so I think you have to look at all of it together. Is it providing value overall? Let the person who's optimizing get into the individual metrics,
Mhm.
but for you, yeah, a higher level, no.
Mhm.
Um,
So, how do you balance in a world where you can look at the advertiser's data? If you're paying for advertising, you can look at the advertising data.
yeah.
Are there other things that you're telling your clients they should be doing right now?
They need to be working with someone that really understands the data. I'm gonna, say that because otherwise they're gonna kind of get stories that don't make sense or don't add up. There's a couple things we haven't even brought up. Like there's ad blockers that people have on their platform
Mhm.
or on their individual levels. There's technologies no longer sharing data between each other. So Apple, Google, and Facebook, just like kind of three big players, they used to share a lot of
Mhm.
information, and that's no longer happening. UTMs are being dropped on Apple devices. So, like that means that is not full safe either. And then you got people with bad setups. So, if you really want to understand your marketing and you're putting a lot of money towards that, then you gotta have both the creative and the data person on your team.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely believe that you also need to recognize that people are more resistant to ads than ever before.
Absolutely.
And so you need to look at how do you play in the organic space in a meaningful way.
Or
And
make your ads not look like ads.
or make your ads not look like ads. You need to, especially on the social side, you absolutely need to be creating content that people are engaging with and use that as the foundation of your advertising.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and so that, you can't that's why that attribution is lost because you're doing a lot of talking, you just can't directly tie it to it. The reality is I don't think you ever could. We pretended like for several years that you could, but I don't think it was quite there. Um,
No, no, I think this has taken away a little bit of that veil where I think uh, you can pretend that maybe it's happening,
yeah.
but
It might be happening behind closed doors, I've met with someone, recently, it's like they have a platform that's super interesting, credit card purchases and things like that, and the platform's $100,000. Do you have $100,000 to drop on data? Unless you're a really large company, probably not.
no, no, and that is the other thing is that good information is getting more and more expensive. And so if especially if you're a small business owner,
Yeah.
you need to be creative. You need to be really focusing on getting people on the social platforms to enjoy your content so they look at your ads as well as your social. You need to be playing with and experimenting with content that Google will pick up as a rich snippet or a featured snippet so that you are in that space.
It's an emotional play. At the end of the day, marketing is an emotional play, and that is what works. Don't get too wrapped up in the data. Try not to be Jennifer too much. Just hire her.
Absolutely. I'm going to second that. Just hire her. And, if you're looking for advice, if you want to find out whether Jennifer is a good fit, you can book a 1 hour working session at digitaltoolbox.club.
Yeah, happy to talk about it. Your specific questions, we're kind of going roundabout here, but I do know the specifics because I obsess about it.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye now.